Hey, what's up? I'm Patrick from the National Film Society, and this is the Q&A from PinxyTV, a Filipino American anthology. So for Filipino American History Month, which is October, the Roxie Theater in San Francisco, along with Mission Arcade and National Film Society and Kid Heroes Productions, presented a collection of short films called PinxyTV. It was all virtual, of course, and it was a ton of fun. So thank you to the Roxie Theater and HP and everyone else involved putting it together. The program is over now, but if you got a chance to see it or are curious as to what Filipino American filmmakers are into and talking about and working on next, you might learn something. There's a hair in my mouth. The filmmakers include Clarissa de los Reyes, Zorinah Juan, Evelyn Obamos, Kat Cole, Patricio Ginelsa, and myself. Paul Lamardo was supposed to be there, but she couldn't make it. She had a work thing. The Q&A was moderated by HP Mendoza, and I'll link to each filmmaker's webpage or some way you can contact them or find out more about them down in the description below. So I hope you enjoy. I will break it down into chapters based on HP's questions. I learned a lot, and I think that there was a good variety of filmmakers in terms of like their experience and their interests. So yeah, don't forget to hit the like button and like this video and to subscribe to the National Film Society for more videos. All right, thanks. And on to the show.
PinxyTV, which is the short film anthology put together by HP Mendoza. That's part of our larger program, Pinxy Flicks, which is what we've been doing here in the Roxie virtual cinema space to celebrate Filipino American History Month. As you know, probably we're a nonprofit, so anytime you watch a movie with us, that supports our mission, and we're just so grateful for that. I hope some of you were able to tune in with our Q&A for Bitter Melon that we did a couple of weeks back. It was super fun, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I see no reason why this one will be any different. And that's probably enough for me. So I'm going to hand it over to our Master of Ceremonies tonight, Mr. HP Mendoza.
Thanks, Kelly. I want to add that I think it's fantastic that a local institution like the Roxie Theater is donating proceeds to arts organizations that might be suffering because of COVID. Many theatrical organizations within the Bay Area have all been put on hold because of the pandemic, and what we'd like to put out there and let you all know is that 20% of the proceeds to PinxyTV are going to Bindlestiff Studios, which, if you're in the Bay Area, you might know what that is. But for those who don't know, Bindlestiff Studios SF is the only black box theater in the nation that's dedicated to Filipino American stories, content, and creators. So go ahead, sliding scale, boost it up a notch if you're a fan of Bindlestiff Studios. And I want to thank everybody who's joined us for PinxyTV, an anthology of short films by Filipino American filmmakers and creators for Roxie's virtual cinema in celebration of Filipino American History Month. And I want to introduce all of the filmmakers in the order they appeared in the program. Please raise your hand or wave to the camera when I call your name. We have Patricio Ginelsa. Are you there?
What's up, everyone?
There's Patricio. Patricio Ginelsa is the founder of Kid Heroes Productions, also a co-presenter of this program. He's the director of the cult Fil-Am classic film Lumpia. And for PinxyTV, he shared 3 pieces, one of them being Bebot by the Black Eyed Peas, Trick Habit by Rocky Rivera, and the music video for the Apple song by Apple of the Black Eyed Peas. And as you saw, his newest film, Lumpia with a Vengeance, is world premiering at the Hawaii International Film Festival with a nationwide watch party on November 7th. Congratulations.
Yep, thanks. 7 years in the making.
And 7 years worth waiting for.
Appreciate it, man. I can't wait to see you guys November 7th. So thanks.
And you'll actually be in Hawaii for that, right?
Yeah, we're making plans to go to Hawaii. It's it's the first time I'm traveling out, so I'm taking all the precautions, taking my family there, but I can't miss it. I even through COVID, I will regret if I don't go to this world premiere. So we're headed over there. So
Well, we'll join you remotely. Paula Mardo can't make it to this program, but I want to introduce the other part of long distance television, Patrick Epino. Patrick, can you see us? Give us a wave. There's Patrick. Patrick Epino directs and produces long distance TV and provides production and editorial support, commentary, and character voices for the show. And he's also the founder of, or not the founder, but a founder, one of two, of the National Film Society, and is an actor and filmmaker whose feature film, Mr. Sadman, was previewed in tonight's program, and also played the part of Troy in Bitter Melon, which screened during the first half of Roxie's Pinxy Flicks. Patrick, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. That's all I got.
Verbose. Up next, we have the director of the short film, Maybe, Kat Cole. How's it going, Kat? Can you hear us, see us?
Hello, hello.
Hello. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be part of this community.
So glad that you are part of it. Kat Cole works as an AP, as an associate producer for a variety of independent documentarians throughout the Bay Area, including Rob Epstein and Jeffrey Friedman. Hi, Rob and Jeffrey. Kat is also a producer of the Black X Film Festival, a festival dedicated to centering work by Black creatives, which had its first run, last month? Like almost exactly a month ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Congratulations. It's amazing. You worked with Bianca Bell, right?
I did. Yeah. She's wonderful.
So excited about that. Congratulations. It's a major feat.
Thank you. We're looking forward to doing it again next year.
Now, year 2 should be even that should be lit. Zorinah Juan. Is there a Zorinah Juan in the house? Wave. Hello. And I'm just going to introduce you real quick. Hi.
Hey, everybody.
Zorinah Juan was an artist in residence at the Napa Valley Film Festival and has won numerous awards and accolades for her most recent feature and her first feature. Her first is her directorial debut for a feature film, When We Grow Up, which is now available on Amazon Prime. Congratulations, Zorinah.
Thank you, HP, and thanks for having me along with the Roxie Theater. Thanks you guys for doing this.
Thanks for joining us. This is great. Clarissa de los Reyes, are you there? We have a Clarissa in the house. Are you here?
Here.
There you are. Hi, Clarissa. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is better than watching the debate. So
yeah, I mean, we're all gonna watch it on YouTube later, right? With all the
SNL. I prefer SNL.
I'd rather see Kate McKinnon do her rendition of and Jim Carrey doing his Biden.
Yeah.
Clarissa de los Reyes is the director of the short film that you all just saw, Johnny Loves Delores, which has won numerous accolades and awards, including Best Film at the San Diego Asian Film Festival. You can see her work as cinematographer on such films as Almost Sunrise by Michael Collins, as well as Motherland by Ramona Diaz. Thanks for joining us, Clarissa.
Thank you for having me.
And lastly, we have Evelyn Obamos. Hey, Evelyn, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can. I feel like you're calling us like we just won a raffle.
And you win a car. And you have a car. Don't I wish I had cars to spare. We are talking with the director of Nothing on Us, Pinay is Rising, the documentary behind Ruby Ibarra's Us. And Evelyn is the founder of Filipinos at Pinterest and board member of FASTER. So that stands for Filipino Americans in Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. I am going to get into that in a bit.
Cool.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Are all the directors of the shorts featured on PinxyTV. And I want to ask a few questions before opening to the audience. And I want to start with Patricio. Patricio.
Oh, okay. I win. I'm first.
You win. Yeah. See, Evelyn's right. This is a raffle. I wish I had a more eloquent way to do this, but this is how I talk, unfortunately. Anyway, it's just how Filipinos talk. Everything's like either karaoke or a raffle.
Entertainment, everything.
Yeah, right. It's like yeah, you're just announcing like numbers for like the next line in the deli. I think it was genius actually to kick off the PinxyTV program with Bebot Generation 1, and like kudos to Roxie for even having the foresight to even know how to celebrate. I think it's again, there's something so local about this program that I love, because you're local as well. I mean, we're all coming from different spots. I'm in Dartmouth, Massachusetts right now, but I'm from San Francisco. And I want to say that, Bebot Generation 1, for all intents and purposes, is a music video, but I think of it as a short film. Could you tell us about the origin of Bebot Generation 1?
Well, Bebot Generation 1 was actually 2 videos. We shot 2 versions of it at the same time, which was already crazy. But Generation 1 is actually not even the official music video for that song. I mean, we made both versions for it. In essence, we kind of, the studio, the label itself, didn't even want to release Generation 1. And so they only wanted to release the Generation 2 version. So me and AJ, my partner in crime and producer, we did what we normally would do. We would just put on YouTube, and that for us, that for me was the real concept of the video, of going back. And we took kind of like the model of like what we did with the Apple song. Was I kind of treated that as if, Apple itself and having a Tagalog song in a mainstream album was already, for me, kind of like, wow, that was mind blowing already. So what started with the Apple song, we just kind of took it times 100 for Bebot, because it was because of the success of the first Apple song video that allowed Bebot to be even greenlit for Monkey Business. And so, of course, they kind of went back to me, which I was honored to fulfill that. But even getting Bebot off the ground and getting the concept approved, it took another 2 years. And actually, I was fired. There's a long story with Bebot, but initially the concept was, if I was going to talk about, even though the music video itself is a commercial, really, just to sell records, for me as a filmmaker, I felt it was my responsibility to kind of show a piece of Filipino American history, because how often are we going to get this platform? So for me, I was already friends with at the time they were called Little Manila Foundation in Stockton, with Don Mabel and Dylan Delvo. I befriended them when I was part of the debut tour, and I just always remembered how grassroots their campaign was to save, the Little Manila, that little section, the little neighborhood in Stockton, California, that they were trying to preserve. And so, we see music videos. A lot of the music videos are always stylistically, oh, hey, let's go back to the 1920s, 30s. It's for the sake of style. And for me, I wanted to bring that style, but to actually show that this is actually real. 9 to 5 farmers, it's kind of like us, like we do our day jobs in the morning, but at night we just want to put in our best suits on a weekend and party. And so these asparagus farm workers were, so anyway, it was weird. I wanted to take that, and I know it's only a commercial, but for me, that was kind of like the genesis of it. It was because of Little Manila and my connection with them, and of course my connection with the Black Eyed Peas, because I had done a video for them, that I was able, even the budget wasn't for there, to, even though they didn't want it, that they wanted Generation 2, that I literally forced their hand and said I would not do that version unless I did my Generation 1 version. Oh, you're muted, HP, sorry.
Oh, there we go, unmuted. So listen, I know you're saying things like, oh, it's just a commercial, but like I feel like everyone on this grid right here, I've spoken to at some, random lengths about what it takes to actually get your story out there. And a lot of times you have to do it like a Trojan horse. You take some commercial work and you sneak kind of what you want to get into that commercial work. And I do feel like, I'd like to think that like things like PinxyTV by the Roxie are indicative that maybe people outside of us are going to start taking Filipino American History Month a little more seriously. So I'd like to think that maybe Bebot Generation 1, this video specifically, this short film, might have a life at least within that, and moving forward. So I kudos to you for actually bringing like the story of the migrant worker through hip hop in a lively way. I think it's a great way to kick off this program.
And thank you for keeping it alive, because I think if not for programs like this, I think when people Google or YouTube Bebot, they would only know about the Generation 2 version. So the Generation 1 version is very hard to find, because it's not, in a way, it's almost like, it takes programs like this and people are fans of it to keep it going. And it's the same thing with history. So I thank you, HP.
No, of course, anytime, man. I want to talk about long distance. Say hi to Paula. I know she's probably super swamped right now. But Patrick, I want to talk to you because the podcast really runs the gamut from stories about like luminary Filipino chefs to life under martial law in the Philippines, and all the way to things that might kind of talk to the intersection of activism, right? Like you have like is it Jamie Gayaga, the Jaime Gayaga, and everything about long distance seems to be equal parts heritage and history. Why do you think it's so important to recognize this month as Filipino American History Month rather than Filipino American Heritage Month?
I think in general that heritage is awesome and it's always part of history. But when people talk about heritage, a lot of it is purely cultural. And it includes stuff like, food, I don't know, holiday stuff, traditions, which are all important and great. But I think Filipino American history is, I'm no expert at it, and I learn stuff all the time from Paula and other people. But, like a lot of it is forgotten, a lot of it, like Patricio was saying, the folks in Stockton, the folks in Delano, and there's not enough people talking about Filipino American history in terms of like the specifics, and we just need more people to talk about it, and we need more scholars, to be honest, and because there's a lot of stuff that like people. There's a lot of academics out there who kind of have a monopoly on the truth, or and they kind of get off on like being that and spouting off, whether it's on Twitter or on panels, and that they're the authority. And if you question them, it can be they just sick their mobs on you, and I think that Filipino American history, like a lot of it is disputed, right? People talk about this idea that Filipinos have been here since the 15 something, right? 16th century, that they came to Morro Bay. But the story of that is that these people were captives on a Spanish galleon and were brought here, got off, and then left, right? They hopped back on. They were trying to escape, as far as I know. And then they ran into some natives, and they're like, all right, you're gonna get out of here, So like, that's not true, And I just think that the history of it, because especially since there's so much assimilation, whether it's from like back in the day or now, there's just so much of that shit. And people who just want to kind of forget about being Filipino, let alone Filipino American. And on top of that, it's like, there's folks, the reality is like, it's not really taught. So if it's not taught, then, sometimes then you can't get to it, and there's not enough people. Obviously Don passed away, and that's terrible, and there's still a few other folks, but we just need more. And that's why I think the focus should be on history. Fonz made that up in the 90s, right? Like that was their idea, and they're very much into history of being Filipino Americans. They've been here they've been doing this for decades. So but heritage is awesome.
No, heritage is awesome, right? And of course, we love heritage. Like, of course, I use, tinikling, right? Like I can do pandango sa ilaw, but like I want to point out to everybody, I'm going to embarrass Patrick for a moment. Gene Kahayan, of the director of the debut, we were together, I forgot which festival it was, but we talked about Patrick, and he said that Patrick Epino of the National Film Society is one of the smartest and wittiest people we have in the Filipino American community. And I respect that you put videos out about Filipino American history versus heritage, because I think that's something that we all feel are kind of touchy about, right? Like I do think, even if we think outside of the Filipino American community, the one thing that does scare me the most is the fact that we're all kind of forgetting our history, right? Like one of the problems with humans is that we don't live long enough to actually learn what mistakes we made in the past. We don't learn what brought us to where we are. So if you guys out there who just saw PinxyTV, who didn't get enough of long distance TV or National Film Society, I urge you to look at the video that Patrick Epino made of Filipino American History Month. Zorinah, congratulations on When We Grow Up.
Thank you.
I think it's great. Like it's your first feature,
It
but
is.
I do want to rewind a bit though to ask you. You know, I'm verbose, so I'm just gonna like ask you a simple question. I'm gonna ask you a simple question so that way it's like more about you. Like I talk a lot. So tell me, the second province. What's the inspiration behind the title of the second province?
You know, I love that we were just talking about heritage and history and kind of the difference and how they work in tandem as well. Because Second Province was a story that I came up with in a way to hold on to the history that belongs to my parents. It's ultimately my history. And I think I wrote the story because I didn't see a lot of movies about kids of immigrants and how once we get into our adulthood and our parents start to age at a certain point, you start thinking to yourself like, oh, you know, their history is mine as well. And we start to clamor to hold on to that in the hopes that we can grasp as much of it as we can before they leave us. So that was really the inspiration behind that.
Well, the interesting thing about your film is I do feel that Filipino content aside, everybody's going to have to deal with what those characters are dealing with at some point. You know, you're gonna have to deal with, okay, what's going to happen with our parents when they start to lose coherence, right? So I think what's interesting about your film is there's an extra layer put upon that, which is, okay, they're starting to lose coherence, but now I have a crossroads. It's like, I can do what every other American does, or I can actually be Filipino American and maybe embrace what has been passed down onto me, whether you can get academic and call it generational trauma if you want, but really it's about it's the idea that we can carve our own paths, right? And like, how do we take care of each other? And I think there's a reason why the second province really resonates with everybody. So congratulations. Where can we find your feature debut?
My feature debut is on Amazon Prime currently, so you can find it there streaming. And yeah, and the second province is actually my, it is a short that you all guys saw in this program, but it will also be extended into a feature, which will be my second feature, hopefully. So yeah, so that script is out and out and about and being seen, which is fun. Yeah.
Clarissa, congratulations on all the success around Johnny Loves Delores. It's a beautiful film. I'm not going to go into what I think about it. Again, I'm verbose. Can you tell folks where the story came from?
Oh, too many sources. So the character of Johnny started out, well, I met this guy. I did a documentary on him. His name was Nestor Sulpico. And he was this taxi driver who found $70,000 worth of pearls in the backseat of his cab. And there's just something about him that stuck with me. And then when the recession happened, things just, came together. I've always been interested in love and money. And, after the recession, I felt like it was the perfect storm to actually combine these two things. And, that's how the film came to be.
It's interesting because you're also a prolific and renowned cinematographer. You've done a lot of films that we've seen, and you're kind of like the silent camera person, right? But for Johnny Loves Delores, you were in the director's seat, but did not shoot it. How was that? How was that for you to give up the control behind the camera and all of those decisions? You gave it to, I'm sorry, who was your DP?
His name is Mike Rossetti.
Sorry, yeah, Mike Rossetti.
Yeah. So I was actually supposed to shoot it. So I wanted to shoot it, but 2 weeks before production, my mom had a stroke in the Philippines. I think it was like 2-3 weeks. So I had to fly back to the Philippines and kind of like finish up pre-production there. And that's when I realized, I'm not going to be able to shoot this and, direct at the same time. But I'm so glad that I decided to collaborate with a DP. And it just allowed me to really focus on the performances and whatnot. Because prior to Johnny Loves Delores, I made a short film that I directed and DP'd. Because I'm like, yeah, I can do this, And unfortunately, the DP was present, but the director wasn't. So that was kind of like a lesson for me.
Well, we're all going through lessons, right? Like, I mean, let's be completely honest here. I love you all, and I love myself enough, but we're none of us are studio filmmakers, right? We're all indie, right? So like everything we do and all the responses we get from people at the film festivals, that's our report card, right? That's our academia. So yeah, we learn this stuff. I learned everything from every film that I have. I will say, I love your DP work, Clarissa, and I actually, you know, if this makes you, if this validates that, I do think that the character work that you do in Johnny Loves Delores is transcendent, and there's a reason you won Best Picture in San Diego.
Thank you.
Evelyn, Nothing on Us is effing lit. It took me a lot to not swear right there. I had to remind myself because I just don't know what are we rated MA? I don't know. What drew you to work with Ruby Ibarra, and what was it like to capture the process of making the video for us?
Wow, such an incredible question, because I know I'm not alone in how many fans Ruby Ibarra has, myself included, and I know there's so many people that want to work with her, and it's been such an honor to now have 2 films done with her, both world premiered at CamFest. Our most recent one was last week at the drive-in, which was incredible to kick off the Fil-Am drive-in experience at Fort Mason here in San Francisco. And honestly, I've actually been a huge fan of Ruby since 2008. My best friend in college made a mixed CD of her music and a bunch of other YouTube artists. And what struck me the most was her and her sister's cover of Drake's Best I Ever Had, and her and her sister Donna had a verse in Tagalog. And I remember for the first time in my life ever hearing like a Pinay rapper for one, and then 2, a rap verse in Tagalog. And so that just opened my just musical rapport to this entire history of like Filipinos in hip hop. And from there, I just kind of followed her music that whole time, was also fortunate to be on the same lineup with her at a few gigs because I also do open mics, and eventually was able to connect with her officially and do films in 2018. And initially she was just going to produce that music video, the super epic, iconic Us music video, which was actually all produced by someone else. That was not my work. That was through Burgundy Sweets. Dale Keano was the producer there, and Ruby directed the whole thing. And she was like, I should document this while I'm producing this music video. And I was gladly up for the task. It happens to be a convergence of all of the worlds I was part of. So PEP, Pinoy Pinay Educational Partnerships, ended up hosting and being the volunteers to organize everyone and corral everyone through the theater. A lot of like student organizations were part of the actual cast. So there's 200 plus Pinays that we sourced via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they all showed up within a week. All shot within 2 days. And I think for everyone on the call, you all know that productions don't normally take just 2 days. And we shot them all at Balboa High School, which was also like a donation from Freedom, who's the principal there. So it's just an entire community event. And it all happens to be around community organizations I've been part of for over 10 years. And it all just like worked out perfectly. So I knew who to talk to. The mayor of Daly City was there at the Just Lynn. So it was just like an epic family reunion. And Ruby was steering at the helm. And I just feel really grateful to be part of being part of that movement into what it is now.
Well, it's great because it is a movement, right? And I feel like anyone who watches the video knows it's a movement. And I think what I love about Nothing on Us, Pinay's Rising, is it kind of gives sort of voice to the process behind that movement. Because I think it's really easy for anyone to watch us and say like, okay, well, yeah, cool, you know, bunch of flips. But like there's something really cool about watching. I mean, there's something specific about the credit sequence especially, right? Because all you see are these like really strong Filipino women just kind of there stomping and clapping. And for those of you who just watch this, you know, if you missed that, please scan back. This program is available for a while. If you registered, you have access. Do pay attention to what's happening in what Evelyn captured, because there's something really powerful in just kind of seeing the camaraderie, knowing what it means for Pinays to get together and move forward, especially through hip hop, right? There's something really exciting about that. And kudos to Kelly and Lex for recognizing that. I thought it was so cool. I want to move to Kat. Hey, Kat.
Hello.
There's maybe a slight bias here, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that Lex was like, "Do you know who Lex Sloan, by the way, ED of the Roxie Theater, was like, do you know who Kat Cole is?" I'm like, "Do I know who Kat Cole is?" The history we have is that Kat actually, maybe Kat Short played before our film, me and Patrick's film, Bitter Melon, in I forgot, San Diego. Sorry, I almost said Hawaii. And I do want to get to maybe. I do want to talk about maybe, but if you don't mind, there's something. Maybe it's where my head is right now politically, and how I feel about American representation. But you are one of the producers of the Black X Film Festival, and I know it's not Filipino. Forgive me, you guys, for kind of taking a tangent, but I kind of want to ask you. You want to tell us about the festival? I think it's tremendous.
Yeah, for sure. The Black X Film Festival, as you mentioned, HP, is started as a virtual film festival to center Black creators. So all of the films that we screened 19 films this last month, and all of the films were directed and produced, if there was a producer, by a Black filmmaker. And kind of, I feel like what was really central to our work was also kind of the process by which we made that. So we were a collective of 8 filmmakers and kind of other folks who comprise of, queer and allies, non-Black POCs and Black creators. And we all came together to form a collective to provide this platform. We raised funds. We were like, first off, we got to pay the filmmakers. So all the funds that we raised went directly to compensate the filmmakers and to several nonprofits nationwide who are doing work in service to Black communities. So yeah, that was awesome. We had like 400 people attend. We had Q&As with all of our filmmakers. It was really lovely to just hear from all of these creators in this moment. And we are kind of, rehashing and trying to figure out what it means to sustain this kind of thing in the years ahead.
Well, it really meant a lot to me to see your name pop, because Bianca told me about it first. Bianca Bell is one of the people responsible for the Black X Festival, and reached out to me because she knew that I had a lot of connections with African filmmakers, not African American, but African filmmakers. When I saw your name there, I was like, oh my God, that's Kat Cole of Maybe. So I want to kind of pivot back to what we should be talking about, I guess, which is your film that was part of PinxyTV. You have a very, very subtle exploration of sexuality and sexual and orientation in that film. Do you want to talk about where that comes from, where the story of Maybe comes from?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this film was inspired by personal memories and exploration. Being a queer person, having grown up in Hawaii, that person that was on screen as my pastor is my grandpa. He is a pastor. That was the place where I got baptized. So there's a lot of collisions that I felt as a young person. And I think when I was making this film, it was actually going to be initially a documentary, kind of delving into family history, understanding kind of the narratives that my family has, how I arrived at the place that I am now. And it kind of transformed into being a narrative film, which I think for me allowed me to kind of creatively reimagine what I wish my history was, which I think is like a really radical space for healing and reexamination. So, the film for me was like, well, as a queer person growing up, in this Filipino culture in Hawaii, like not feeling, like really feeling connected to my Filipino community, and also finding the edge where that, where the specific context where I grew up in collided with this kind of burgeoning queer identity. and so being someone who didn't have a queer community in Hawaii, what would that look like if those kind of communities started to kind of rub against each other in this space? So that was kind of the question for me in making the film. And I think the subtlety that you mentioned, HP, is kind of my own personal aesthetic, coming more from a contemporary dance practice that is very abstract and kind of feeling based, and like the minutia of a moment is something that I'm really interested in. Just also in the ways that like we as people are impacted by the smallest things in life that we might not understand the echoes of that impact until we look back in hindsight. So, you know, my day-to-day is not one big movie, but I think there are always these subtle moments that I feel like it's these smaller decisions that then lead to who we are down the line. So I'm really interested in finding those little interactions.
Well, I appreciate that because I remember seeing it from the very, very back of the theater right before Bittermelon, because I was doing a tech check, and your film was playing right before Bittermelon. And I remember thinking to myself, "Wow, this feels like a series of memories." You know, like when you think back on why you did what you did. You know, and being a queer person myself, I was like, "Huh, okay, I remember what it felt like to compare the straight experience against what was a potentially queer experience." And so for those of you who might be just tuning in, I urge you to watch Maybe by Kat Cole, because I think it accurately and subtly kind of attacks that moment, especially in that part of it, in that time of your life. There's a question from Christian in Daly City, and I think maybe this person maybe didn't log in. So I'm just, the question is, where is Lumpia 2 going to be premiering? But, I think this might be a good chance to, Patricio, just go ahead and tell us more about Lumpia 2, Lumpia with a Vengeance.
Lumpia with a Vengeance is kind of a reboot. It's a sequel to my homemade movie I shot in Daly City, Lumpia. And so I was kickstarted 7 years ago, and we had to make a movie. But it stars Mark Munoz and Danny Trejo. It's an action comedy about this superhero that fights with Lumpia. And but that's how we attract people to the film. But underlying it, there's a story there that I hope people can connect with. He has to actually team up with a high school student to take down this crime syndicate. So, so it's for me, the movie itself is very personal. Only because it was shot in my hometown in Daly City, and they gave us a lot of love in terms of shooting all my old neighborhood and my high school, Jefferson High School. But yeah, we're premiering on Hawaii International Film Festival, but there'll be one virtual nationwide premiere on November 7th, and that's limited. So we're trying to mimic like a theater. So this is be a huge theater. So we do invite people to make it a Lumpia watch party on that night, because it's only playing for you only have an hour to watch it between 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then yeah. I'm talking too much about Lumpia.
I'm in a Portuguese enclave right now in Massachusetts. My husband's full-blooded Portuguese, and we're actually going to have a Lumpia watch party. And man, they have some strong ass accents. But I have to say, we're going to have a Lumpia watch party, and I'm going to make Lumpia for a bunch of Portuguese people. Here's hoping. But no, congratulations on the premiere. And I want to ask one more question. What's next after Lumpia 2?
It is not Lumpia 3, though I'm not opposed to Lumpia 3. But there is I'm still, my next script that actually has been getting some it'll be a drama. I'm actually trying to do a biopic. I can't really reveal, but it's something that I feel like with the Apple song, the video where I like that just a different twist from the wacky action comedy, and kind of going back to really telling a story about, again, Filipino American history. So it is a Filipino American film. It is a biopic, and it's a drama. So
that's great. No, I'd love to see what you do. And it wouldn't be too much of a pivot for you, because actually I really feel that, as lively and party-like as the music videos and the media that you make, there's a melancholy behind it all, So I'd love to see what happens if you lean into that. We have a question for Clarissa. I I was so moved by the precarity of Johnny and Dolores' situations and so hopeful they would find happy endings to their stories. How do you think a feature-length version of Johnny Loves Delores would play out?
There has been a feature screenplay floating out there for like how many years now. So we've been submitting, for my producer and I, Cecilia Mejia, have been submitting it to grants and stuff, and we finally got into Tribeca All Access this year. Of course, COVID. So I can't really tell you how it ends in the feature, but let's just say that it's different from how it ends in the short. I was very attached to the ending in the short, and I did try to keep it for the feature, but after numerous rewrites, it just didn't, it was just a totally different film. And, it merited a different kind of ending. So that's all I could say for now.
Is this something, now this is not from the person who's asking the question, I'm just tacking onto this. Is this something where you feel where, because it has a different ending than you intended, this actually might give a second life to your short?
It's so, well, maybe, but I don't know. Like for me, like the short is like a lifetime ago. And I've moved on from the short, like onto many different projects. So I don't know. I mean, good question. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, either way, I think anyone who's seen Johnny Loves Delores wants to know exactly what happens next. Like, of course, there are implications, but when it comes to issues of the heart and love, people are like, tell me how it ends. So I'm excited to find out what this feature version is. There's
in Yellow Rose. That's how it ends.
Right. Oh, so speaking of which, Clarissa, you mentioned that Cecilia, we have a question come in, but I'll get to that. You mentioned Cecilia Mejia, who is one of the producers on Yellow Rose, which is in its second weekend now, is it, of the Gold Open? Yeah. I wanted to get Diane on this now, but of course, Yellow Rose is not a short. But I'm really excited about the fact that we actually have a big Filipino American film hitting theaters right now. Sorry. So, oh God, I lost the question. How do I click on that window? Sorry. Well, okay. So this is for long distance. Long distance, Patrick. What is next for long distance TV?
In general, long distance, like we took a bit of a hiatus after the end of the second season, which was earlier this spring. And like everybody else, this whole COVID thing has thrown like a wrench in some of our plans of going here and there and talking to these people and those people. But, we're working on some stuff right now. There's a particular story that I guess Paula won't let me talk about, but that we're working on, and there's like the video component of it is something that's a little bit longer. Like these ones in this program are roughly like 5-ish minutes or something. And we wanted to do something a little bit longer. So we're just trying to push it to maybe 25, 30 minutes, see what we get out of it. I mean, for all of these, it's interesting shooting these because basically like you're on any shoot, you're so limited with time, but the priority for any time we have is the podcast audio. So I'm literally just like walking around shooting everything. Like you can't shoot like that much like sync sound. You got to walk around in socks all the time. If my shutter goes off, Paula shoots me a glare. I'm like, yo, what? I mean, yeah, so it's, we're working on some stuff and I definitely want to see what, we want to expand because long distance was initially, stories and, places we had access to by car, right? Like LA, Delano, Stockton. And then we started going around the country a little bit more. And we wanted to kind of expand it because it's basically, it's stories in the Filipino diaspora, which are present and historical or recent history. So we got some stuff in the works. So just, for sure, stay tuned.
And I'm going to actually tack on to this question here. Tacking on in that it's to you, but it's actually not about long distance. Awesome Asian bad guys. I don't know how many of the people on this grid know about awesome Asian bad guys, but I know that a lot of the people in my community know all about awesome Asian bad guys. Patrick Epino of National Film Society and his co-founder, Stephen DiBianco, did Awesome Asian Bad Guys. And I want to ask what's next for Awesome Asian Bad Guys, but I'm kind of more interested in hearing you talk because I think it's really apropos to Filipino American History Month. Like, what about Awesome Asian Bad Guys made you want to make a movie about Awesome Asian Bad Guys?
Oh, it was born out of a YouTube video we did way back when, and where we talked about all the Asian dudes we saw in TVs or movies were either nerds or bad guys. So we kind of came up with this shtick where it was like the Expendables, but Asian bad guys, and it was kind of like this meta action comedy where these people play themselves, and we have to round them up and turn them into a squad of to take down LA's most nefarious mob boss. So it's always those mob bosses, right, Patricio? It's just tormenting every city, whether it's DC or LA. But yeah, I mean, it was great because these were like, we got to work with Ali Yong, who was the Fu Manchu guy and everything, like Die Hard and Lethal Weapon. Yuji Okamoto, who played Chosen in Karate Kid Part 2, and my favorite, Tamla Tomita, who is just, I mean, that was, that was fun. So she's the best. Love her.
Patrick.
We have a question here. Sorry, Joe is asking. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Patrick. This is not you. I apologize. This is to Zorinah. How close was the material to your life? Because the sister is so fully realized.
Oh.
How close were the events of the second province to your life?
There, I guess, thankfully, the mother and the terminal illness is not something that is in my life. But it's inspired by the fact that my parents are aging. My parents are in their 70s, and I think about, what it's going to be like without them. And as an artist, I think that a lot of us have put our art in front of maybe some of our personal goals. And so it's close to me in that way, where I do aspire to have children one day. I do aspire to find the right partner. And I hope that my parents will be there for those events. And I'm honestly not sure if they will be. So it's basically, I guess, close to my life in that way. And the siblings represent different parts of me. I think John Norman Schneider's character, June, is very much the American part of me, and a lot of the American culture that is in me. But the sister, who's played by Maureen Sebastian, who's amazing, is very much my Filipino cultural identity. The things that I feel culturally that I was brought up with, that I feel very responsible for, the things that are unspoken, but that I wish to carry. And so it's close to me in that way.
So what's interesting is that John Norman Schneider, who plays the brother in Zorinah's film, The Second Province, played the lead character in Bitter Melon across Patrick Epino on our grid right now. And I think what's really interesting is there was a moment in Bitter Melon where you have the older brother talking about, oh, I live in Philadelphia now, and my Filipino immigrant mother comes to visit me once a year. So that means what? I get to see her 10 more times? That's sobering. And I think it's something that we're all going through regardless of our ethnicity, right? But there's something very specific when you're dealing with people who came here for a better life and wanted to give birth to us here for that reason, right? And now here they are kind of deteriorating and moving on. And I think that's what really moves me about the Second Province. And I think it strikes a chord with anybody who watches it. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
For creating a really moving and still humorous story. It's not all gloom and doom. It's actually there's a very dark humor to it. I appreciate that.
Thank you for saying it.
Yeah, no, there is. Like the banter between the sister and John Norman Schneider, I think, is just so relatable. There's a question here that's where can we see Mr. Sadman? So Patrick, this is for you. Where can we see Mr. Sadman? I guess my link didn't. I tried my best to put these Vimeo links that pop up after things, but I think they don't work on mobile. Where can folks see your featured directorial debut, Mr. Sadman? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
You can't actually see it anywhere right now. It's something that I made when around the time you and I met. And I am going through a re-edit of it. And I hopefully sometime next year, I'm trying to, it's when Clarissa was talking about it was like her film and being like a lifetime ago, I was like, yeah, yeah, you get to that point. And it's something that I think when I look at it now, I want to, I got some adjustments I want to make to it and then put it back out. It was out for a while, but I took it offline and because, you know, it's never going to be exactly what you want, but there's certain things, as at least me personally, as I've kind of gotten older and I think maybe my voice has matured a little bit. Maybe I'm less smart assy or less, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, with Bittermel and everything. Yeah. Next, I would say hopefully by spring next year, you know, before the vaccine.
I'm typing that spring next 2021. Like I'm going to hold you to that.
Please do, because you know I've how that goes sometimes.
Oh, I'm a good nag, you know that.
It's easy to push it down the priority list, but yeah.
Well, so there's something, I know we only have a few minutes left, but because there are only a few of us here, it's not too big of a crowd, I think. I want to ask a question, and I think it'd be really cool to kind of work down the grid and have everyone answer in their own way, from their own experience. Because it is an important month for us, right? Like it's a chance for us to reflect and think about who we've lost, you know. And I think, you know, we to Patrick's point, we have lost some people who were the holders of our history, the scholars who actually made sure that we hung on to our history. What does it mean for you? And I know a lot of your stories, and I know that a lot of you are in different places in your careers, but the one thing we do share in common is that we're all Filipino American, and we all probably share a lot of the same alienations and a lot of the same struggles and jealousies and victories. Where do you see yourself in the landscape of Filipino American cinema? Like what do you want to do for Filipino American cinema? And I'm going to choose it random. Is that an obnoxious question? That was just it's really on my mind these days. I think I want to start with I'm gonna go. You guys don't know what's on my grid. Patricio, I'm gonna start with you. Where do you? It was bound to come to you anyway.
Look, I don't. When it comes to Filipino American cinema, I think what makes me proud, and this is actually just watching this entire program earlier today. It makes me emotional because I think. Even when I was part of the debut, there weren't many filmmakers, who were doing Filipino American stories. And to see, and I guess I've been stuck in this Lumpia bubble for a long time, to see a lot of this work that I had not even heard of, it really resonates to me to the point where I've always thought the goal was that eventually in the future, at some point, but now I feel it's going to come even sooner, is that we can actually flip on a channel in 24 hours, you can see Filipino American history, you can see programs, TV, movies, or what have you. And that was always something I said. I remember even when I was in a debut and I was doing my whole introducing the screenings, you know, I always felt that, you know, there'll be a time when we could do that. And just seeing this and seeing, and there's been a lot of movements in the past I've seen, and I feel very proud. And it's not, I mean, yes, I would love to still take part of it because I feel there's still a lot of stories that I want to share and visualize out there. But I think I'm most proud of the fact that there are other people out there, everyone in this chat room, in the Zoom call right now who are making it, who are remembering that history, who are continuing that history, and even making sure that we have platforms like this for people to see it. So that for me, there's a sense of pride going on, and it motivates me. It motivates me to keep going. And so that for me is the most important part. It's just making sure that our history, and remember, this month is not called Heritage, not Filipino American Heritage, it's Filipino American History.
Right.
So that's one thing, that it's us remembering that history and remembering what the name of this month is called.
Absolutely. And again, I'm going to go back. I'm a broken record, but I think I just feel like we, Filipino or not, we just like remember your history. You'll learn from it. You know, like you're not above it. You think you're smart, but you're just repeating patterns. Like focus on your history and respect the people who brought you to where you are. I'm working clockwise on a grid that you guys can't see. So I'm going to move on to Zorinah. Zorinah, where do you feel like you fit into the landscape of Filipino American cinema, and what do you hope to provide, or what do you hope to see?
Where I fit into the landscape, I feel like, you know, just to just to continue what we're doing here right now, right, is to continue to create stories that are a reflection of not only our history but our culture, and to continue to make history by creating stories that we're the center, that we're the heroes of our own stories, that we get to tell them in our authentic voices and create narratives that are true to our identities, and also have Filipinos be leading men, leading women who are just in the universal human experience, where, of course, you know, you could tell that we're Filipino, and it's very reflective of the characters, but we're also just here on this earth experiencing it. So,
and it is about that, right? It's experience. Like no one, I do think that the one thing I take pride in when it comes to the Filipino American audience is there may be a select handful of people who say this, but for the most part, you don't have a bunch of petty people saying like, well, that's not about me. You know, it's Filipino Americans don't have, we're not a monolith. We don't have to represent everybody when we make stories about Filipino Americans, because the best we could do is tell stories about ourselves. And I think that's why all of us here who've created anything really resonates, because every one of you who created a story in PinxyTV, you've created a story that resonates with you and is really about yourself. And that's what kind of makes it universal. I'm rotating now to Clarissa. And let me know if this is getting repetitious, but I know that we're all answering the same question. But I really would love to hear what you have to say about where you fit in the landscape of all of this and where you want to see things go.
I kind of wish you'd email this question to us so we can.
I know.
Look,
this just came up. This just came up. I'm not sober. So I'm being completely honest. So, but if you don't want to answer, I totally understand.
Okay, I will try and answer it. I don't know why I make films. You know, I make films because I'm attracted to a certain subject matter, or, you know, I met someone and, you know, that person just stayed with me. I don't know. For me, I think I've spent like the past 20 years wondering why I want to make films. And thank God for Trump 2016. I think I kind of like honed in on why. And here's what happened. I was walking down the street like 2-3 days after he was elected. And for the first time in like 15 years of living in New York, a woman yelled at me and told me to go back home, to go back to where I came from. And then I had a feeling it was going to happen after Trump won. And I said, you first, I'm Native American, you know, and of course I'm not, I'm Filipino. But that really got me thinking. And in a way, it's kind of like crystallized why I wanted to make films. And it's because, you know, I want to be treated like a human being. So it's not Filipino specific. That, you know, for me, it's about making films that remind people of our, you know, common humanity. You know, I just I just want to be able, I just want to make, like if I can just contribute this much, like if I make a film and someone who doesn't know our culture, who doesn't really know us, can say, oh, okay, I kind of recognize myself in that person. I mean, I'm happy, so that's it.
Well, I will say that I do think, and this may be contentious, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it because who gives a fuck. I remember when you won the awards. I have to say there's something very high-minded about Johnny Loves Delores. Even though it's about Filipinos, it feels like its concerns are much larger than that. So it's really interesting that you're saying that you're saying right now it is much larger than that. And I do think that we're at a point right now, especially in America, where we have to kind of stand alongside each other. And and honestly, I think that's why I'm interested in pivoting this question, still keeping in the same vein, but the next person is Kat. And if you don't mind me pivoting, if you feel like answering the question that I've asked everybody else, that's fine, but I would love to add, I know we might be running over time. Sorry, Kelly, stop me if I'm going on, but like this is important to me. Kat, if you wouldn't mind talking about intersectionality, you as a Filipino American person, being a producer on the Black X Film Festival, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Roxie, stop me, by the way. Like I know where it's 10:02, sorry, or 7:02 for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it means that understanding our struggle is tied to the struggle of many marginalized communities, and kind of finding the threads in which, like, understanding the ways that we have been oppressed and the ways that we need to show up as allies for people, especially the Black community, especially trans Black women, and the ways that we need to kind of speak truth to our own power and show up for that. So I think, I think like part of just my own engagement in filmmaking, in making work, is my own healing, is my own connecting with community, so that I can be a better person to provide support, to give back to the communities where I'm called.
And Evelyn, I think this is a good pivot to you, because I feel like so much of that was echoed even just through people's voices within like the documentary portion of what we showed tonight, Nothing on Us. Well, like where do you stand as far as like all of us standing together and getting marginalized voices and lesser heard voices represented and seen on the screen, big or small?
First off, thanks for the existential question.
I know.
Here we are, a few folks to solve these larger conversations, but I think this is a great place to start, and obviously not end this conversation here either. Two things came to mind when you brought this question up, and I'll bring up the memory and the impact that I hope to have. The first is, actually, I think Ruby is actually tuned in right now because she just commented on the live stream. So, hey, Ruby, if you're out there. But this is a quick spoiler to our new documentary that we just released. But we actually had the serendipitous opportunity to meet Maria Ressa when we were in the Philippines shooting. This was right after her first arrest in February, and we were there in March. And I'll never forget her words, because to this day, they give me the chills. And she told Ruby and the band, the Balikbayans, journalism reaches people, but your music and art reaches the masses. And that to me is the message that echoes with almost every artist, filmmaker I've ever met. It's what isn't told on mainstream is the counter narrative in the production, in the films, in the music. And I think that was just so powerful. And I think we do have a responsibility to our craft to represent these identities for the people who tend to be the only ones who look like themselves in a room.
Yeah.
And for the people who are in a room that look like themselves, but don't feel like a representation of them is in those films either. And that's where intersectionality comes into play. And what I'm recognizing as a filmmaker and someone who still has her day job is there needs to be more access to these tools. There needs to be more access to the knowledge space of being able to produce a successful and high quality production. Because let's be real, when it comes to what we produce, the equipment we use is not cheap. the programs we're producing on cost money. Even organizing people is time. And I think what's been really powerful about being in the Filipino film space is it's cool to like know y'all personally and still feel like I can access you. And I think that's the unique piece about being Filipino is we have this super kapwa family community where now it's cool. I could just be like, yeah, I like know HP, I know AJ, I know Patrick. And it's super dope to just feel like we are all connected, even if we're super far apart and we're all producing in our own spaces. And what I hope to do eventually is borrow from the tech sector where I work and hopefully one day produce like an incubator model for films. So folks can have a creative space. There can be a shared knowledge space. Open source is a very techie term, but basically people who can access how have we done this? How did this person connect with that person and hopefully build networks from there. There's obviously these like pockets of those spaces already, like Cinesala, National Film Society, CanFest, and hopefully this can just converge into like a larger space eventually. But give me some time. I still need to work on my day job.
Well, no, but you at your day job, you are still as instrumental as can be, right? Like I do feel no, and I really do think that everybody here is also instrumental. I recognize that there's like there's a question here, and I want to get to this because it's an important question. But the one thing I do want to say before we get to this question, I know we're over time, but this is a question that I think is being sent to me because it should be answered. So before we get to that question, I do want to say that I think that all of us here are people who are, you know, I think a lot of people would say like whatever, mid-career is not the right thing to say because there are a lot of people who are doing their first films here. But I think what that means is that we are a lot of people here who actually have access to audiences. We have our own followings, and a lot of us have the same audiences. And Evelyn, I remember you held a party at CamFest, and I apologize. I had to go moderate a different Q&A at that time. But I do think that a lot of times people kind of shit on themselves when they say like, well, what good am I doing? I'm just putting pictures on a screen. Or I'm just a stand-up comedian. Like I talk to a lot of people, Filipino American people who are like, yeah, I'm in the arts, but like in this day and age, during COVID, during the pandemic, during this time of unrest and misinformation, what the hell am I doing? And I'm like, you're being a patriot. You know, you're actually rallying people together who have like-minded thoughts and people who want to work in the same space as you do. So Evelyn, I do think that you have everybody here. I mean, I'm speaking about everybody. Everybody has a propensity and a chance to make a difference. And I guess I'm just talking that way right now because November 3rd is on my mind, you know. And I'm sorry, this question is glaring me in the face, and I know we have to go, but I should ask this last question. This is a good final question. I lost it. Crap. Wait. Where is the best sinigang in San Francisco?
Lucky Chances, but that's in Colma.
Lucky Chances. Colma.
It's in Colma.
I go to Irma's Pampangan on 16th and Mission.
Ooh.
I am a fan of Irma's Pampanga. But if you get to Irma's and it's closed, go to Lucky Chances because Irma's does close. Lucky Chances does not. That's what Lucky Chances is where we took Diane Paragas and the cast of The Yellow Rose. Imagine taking fucking Princess Punzalan to Lucky Chances. That was amazing. Wow. She was so like, oh yeah, no, yeah, this is cool. I'm just here for the sinigang, and like everyone knew her, and she's there like this. That was amazing. But I recognize we are 10 minutes over time, but you know what? We're on Filipino time, and that's okay. Thank you, everybody, for being part of PinxyTV. For those of you who are just tuning in now, please check out the PinxyTV program. It's 99 minutes of Filipino American content. I've linked during the program to everyone's profiles and film pages. Support us. We could use your support, and the tickets are sliding scale, but 20% of the proceeds go to Bindle Stiff Studio, the only black box theater dedicated to Filipino American content creators and playwrights. Everybody, thank you so much. Kelly, thank you. If you want to close us out, I'll just shut the hell up right now.
All right. Thank you so much, all of you, for turning out tonight. This was such an incredible Q&A. I just feel so lucky to even be in the room with you all. And I kept forgetting to say this before, but HP, I just want to thank you for really being the driving force behind this and putting this all together. The way you edited PinxyTV together is so beautifully done. The credits, the way you put in all those informative links between each short, it's just so great. It's just one of the best produced shorts programs I've ever seen. And I had such a good feeling watching it. I was just so happy that this was something that the Roxy could be a part of. Thank you all for tuning in tonight and sharing your stories with us. Salamat. Did I say that okay? I don't know.
Yes.
I had a great time, and thank you so much for doing this with us. Happy Filipino American History Month. Good night,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.